Are you looking for an experience that will grow your teenagers' faith, increase their leadership skills, and teach them the discernment to engage with the world all around them, all while taking them on the adventure of a lifetime? I mean, who isn't looking for that? If your teenager loves fun, adventure, and wants to grow in their faith and leadership this summer, then send them to Excel's Summer Leadership Camp. Excel's Summer Leadership Camp is a 12-day experience for passionate young leaders looking to discover God's truth, to discern wisely, and live wholeheartedly. Your teenager will embark on a transformative journey in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they'll build lasting friendships in the context of community, embark on thrilling adventures like camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and they will receive expert training and certifications in categories like CPR and wilderness first aid. Each aspect of the camp is woven together to help them learn to discover truth, to discern wisely, and take godly action in the context of real-life situations. To learn more or begin an application, go to theexcelcamp.org. That's theexcelcamp.org. Hurry, because summer is just around the corner.
You know, the generations change. And I always try to tell people, well, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He does not change. Like, okay, the generation might be okay with this and this happening in the world, but Jesus isn't. People, I think, try to, like, make the perfect prayers and sit there and try to outline the perfect prayers. And it's like, could I just sit there and talk to God? Just sit there and talk to him about everything you would talk to your best friend about. When you think about it that way, and you really do just think about, like, Jesus as your friend, it just changes your outlook on everything. I opened up my Bible, I prayed, I said, God, if he's not going to be my husband, just take him out now. I don't want to go on the date. I was like, I don't want to go on the date tomorrow if this isn't going to work out for me. So like, if he cancels, great, I will never speak to him again. I won't go on the date. I'm at peace right now. Like, I'm happy with how my life is going. Do not send this person in if they're going to disrupt it. I only want someone who's going to add into my life, not take away from it, because I've been with people who take away from you, friendships, exes, whatever it is, and it's so draining, like so draining.
Liv, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back. Yeah,
welcome
I'm happy to be back here.
Yeah, super happy to have you back. We're recording in Spotify in New York City. This is so cool. We're in person.
Finally.
Was this our first time meeting in person?
Yes, it is. I was talking about that in my TikTok vlog today. I was like, I recorded with her before, but this is our first time actually meeting.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising because I feel like I've already met you.
Me too.
And I feel like we have followed each other for such a long time, or at least I followed you, and like I just kind of know your life in a way, and not in a creepy way, in like a friendly way.
Yeah, same.
So it's cool to like actually be here and actually meet you and hang out. And yeah, we're sipping coffee. We just had like a little 10-minute catch up.
Yeah.
Just about life and podcasting and this like the craziness that is this industry.
It's definitely a crazy industry.
It is. Yeah. So you got some life updates.
Yeah.
Some stuff has happened since we last chatted.
Because I thought the last time we chatted, it had been like over a year. Because I was like, I was at such a different time in my life when we recorded last February. We looked, and I was like, I was at such a different point in my life. And now I'm just like, I haven't listened to that episode in a while unless I see like your reels. But I know if I did, I'd be like, who is that girl? Not that I was like extremely different, but more so that I feel like me last February versus me this February is just like two completely different women career-wise, just everything.
What would you say is like the major difference or differences?
I would say the major difference is, one, career-wise. Last February, I was like ready to kind of give up with like everything. Not even just last February, I would say like a few months at that time. I was just like, especially like the November to February period, I was just very done. I had talked about with Lily earlier, like I lost my Instagram last year, and I had lost all my followers, all the content I created, all the DMs that I had with people completely gone. And after that happened, I was like, is this God trying to tell me like this is not your thing, this is not what you're supposed to be doing, and like taking that away. And then I was like very undetermined. I didn't want to be doing social media or podcasting anymore. I took a break for a little bit because I was just not at a good part in my life anymore, mentally, emotionally, nothing. So I did take a little bit of a break. Obviously had to reap the consequences of listenership and followers going down and engagement. But I also think I needed that break because career-wise, I was just so unmotivated, not inspired, looking at other options for work and trying to use my degree instead of just like working on my own business. And now I'm like, no, I'm going to do everything I can to make myself grow. Yeah. So like that's a really big difference. I would say a big difference too is like love life. Like back then I was very discouraged on finding the man that God had for me, and now I'm in like a very happy, God-driven relationship, which like if you told me that last time you recorded, like, oh, this is going to happen to you in a few months, I would have not believed you. So it's like so crazy. And then even just like my confidence level, like I have such a different different viewpoint of like who I am and like the person and the woman that I want to be. Because I feel like I never really knew, because I was always like in this little bubble, and I feel like I finally let myself like jump out of that bubble and really kind of just get to know myself.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, I think. Like,
a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of life changes.
A lot of life changes. And I think you mentioned losing your Instagram and how you kind of felt like that was God telling you just give up. And that is so relatable, at least for me in my life. I'm sure that people listening have similar circumstances. And I had a friend ask me the other day, do you think that God does test us and throw us trials? Like, oh, is she still going to stay faithful even though I'm throwing this trial her way?
Right.
And is she still going to trust me that I'm building the thing for her and that I'm like doing the plan for her? Like, is she still going to trust that this is part of the plan? And so similarly, I started to talk more about my faith on the podcast, lost tons of followers, lost tons of listeners. And it just takes such a blow to your confidence. And so for you to say like, oh, I lost my Instagram and I was struggling and trying to think of like, is this God telling me no? How did you get past that? Like, how did you work through that?
So what you just said too about kind of God throwing something like in your way and saying, is she going to stick with it even though I'm throwing this? I thought of like relationships or even like friendships where you're going to have fights and you're going to have downs, but if you really love that person, you're going to try to make it work. So I thought of me and my podcast, and I was like, this is a down. I haven't really experienced much of these downs in my show. Is this God telling me you shouldn't be doing this? Or is this God telling me, hey, here's your down. How much do you actually love this? Because if you actually love this and you get through this, I will reward you. So that's how I put it in my head. So I just got the chills saying that because I'm like thinking of myself last year. So I remember like for months, I was like literally maybe like 6-7 months, I was barely posting on my podcast, barely posting on Instagram. Like it was a long time of me not being consistent with it. And then I just randomly, I started to work, I would say around like maybe like March, April, May, those 3 months, I started to really work on my relationship with God. Like, didn't focus on my podcast, didn't focus on my career, didn't focus on dating or like going out. Like, I was like in my like working on myself villain private era. Like, I was like done with everybody, just me and God, and that was it. And when I did that, everything started to come into place for me. Something randomly inside of me was like, keep going with the podcast. Like, you're going to be rewarded. Keep going. And I kept going, and it's like everything was just falling into place. And now I'm at a point where I put in as much work as I can and I let God do the rest. So this actually last night I was having like a little bit of a mental breakdown because I was working every day this week from like waking up at 7 a.m. till like working until 8-9 p.m. on the laptop. Because when you own your own business, it's like it never stops. When you work a corporate job, you clock out at 5, you get home, you don't have to think about it. But when you own your own business, there's always things running through your mind. And so for like a week straight, including the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was working every single day. I didn't have any plans. I didn't have anybody to see this weekend. So I really had like a full like 8-9 days of doing that. And yesterday it like really caught up to me. And I remember FaceTiming my boyfriend. I was like, I'm like freaking out. Like I had a really tough work week and it's like really overwhelming sometimes. As much as I love what I do, sometimes you just have to say, this was all I could give today or this week. God, I need you to do the rest. Like you have to give me the rest of the strength to wake up tomorrow and want to do this and this, because right now I'm like, I can't do it for myself.
Yeah, that's so good. I have so many moments. Even last night, I was so anxious.
Me too.
And I don't know why.
Me too.
Maybe there's something in the air or something like geographically over here. Like, I don't know. Probably too much coffee, probably like lack of sleep. But same thing. I was just like laying in my bed and I was like, God, can you just take this off my shoulders? Please. Just like begging him, like, take this. And he does. And he always will. And I think that that's the coolest thing is like, you literally just have to ask.
Yeah, and he does it. And it's like, normally I'll work like Monday through Friday, like super long hours, but then like Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, I just relax. Yeah. And this past weekend, my boyfriend had the flu and my friends were busy, so I was just by myself. So I was like, I'm just going to work, obviously. Yeah. So it's like I didn't have that break that I normally give myself. And if I don't take a break in the middle of an overwhelming work week, I'm going to burn myself out. So last night when it was 8 p.m. and there was still stuff I wanted to do, I was like, no. Cut the screen time. I had a headache from looking at my screen all day. Yeah. I was like, you're going to have a busy, productive day in the city recording tomorrow. Cut it for tonight. Tomorrow's a new day. Like, God will do the rest for you. And, like, that was it. And I woke up so much more motivated.
Do you have any ways or, like, hacks or routines that you use to kind of decompress? Because I totally relate to just this being so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. one, the screen, like especially if you do content creation, like I do social media along with my podcast, so I am on my screen 24/7. I wake up, I film my morning routine, I'm editing it. I film talking in the car. Like I've been trying to make content out of everything I do, which is like also such a tough work-life balance. But I try to do content with everything I do, so when it's late at night and I'm still on my screen and it's 9:30 and I should be sleeping, I would say decompress by just turning off your screens. Like I called my boyfriend last night instead of being on my screen, put the phone down, like wasn't looking at it, just was laying down and talking to somebody. Like talking to somebody that you love or you enjoy talking to, or you just, you know, can kind of turn your brain off. If there's anybody in your life that lets you turn your brain off, keep them around. It's legit the best. So having that person and just talking like is the best decompressing for me. I feel like also because we have podcasts, talking is obviously
it's like therapy.
Yeah, it's like a free therapy.
Yeah.
So talking helps me to relax. Showers or baths, like I love just like pretending I'm washing off all like the negative or stress away. And then I really love just like comfort shows, food, like comfort food. I love comfort food, and I love like planning. Like if I plan like a productive week, it weirdly helps me decompress in a way too because I feel
1000%.
remotivated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you're also getting all those things in your head out on paper.
Exactly.
If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I always have to make a to-do list. And then I usually see that all the things that I have to do, like they weren't that big of a deal
it's not
to
that
begin with.
crazy.
And it's like put gas in your car and like send a couple emails.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, my life's not necessarily like that easy all the time, but usually it's just the overwhelm of thinking, okay, these are all the things that I have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the other day I was like, oh my God, I have to get gas and fill my tires and go to the post office. Like I was like, I have such a busy day. And I was like, dude, just
like that's
once you do it, you're like, wait,
things.
that took 25 minutes.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's just the getting yourself to do it.
Yeah.
I think that is
and like cleaning your space too. I'm huge. If you guys go to my social media, it's all me cleaning my room. I love cleaning my space, cleaning out my closet. It's the best decompressor for me to just get rid of all the screens and start cleaning.
Yeah.
I love
so
it.
helpful. And keeping it, like you said, keeping an organized space. You actually created a planner, right? Or like a digital resource for people? Okay.
It's like a digital reset package. So I sell it on my website, and I'm huge on pressing the reset button. Like I love just when you feel like when you start to feel burnt out, the feeling of just resetting everything from cleaning your room to putting in a hair mask to doing some self-love journal prompts to planning things out, Pinterest boards, whatever it is. I love the idea of a reset. And I think so many of us, even if we're listening to podcast episodes, we get so excited to just reset because we're motivated. So I wanted to create a plan where you can reset by being motivated, but also stay consistent with it, not just have 2 days of being productive and that's it. So basically in the digital reset package, it's on my website, foryoufromeve.org. It's basically, it has like my workout plan. It has a goal strategy list, which I'm huge on. Like I'm a big believer in don't just write your goals, plan out how you're going to achieve your goals. My cleaning breakdown, which I love. And then I also curated a bunch of self-love journal prompts, which is what I love the most. Daily planners in it. Like there's so many things in it. I have the whole list on the website, but it's just so many different things to help you just press that reset button and just like take a breath and feel like a new person.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so another life update is you have a boyfriend now.
I do.
Can you tell me about that? Like,
yeah.
Give me everything, because this is so exciting.
So like, it's so funny because I feel like all those quotes that they say about like when you know, or like it comes when you're least looking for it, and like, I'd always hear that and I'm like, just shut up. I'm
That's
like,
me. That's me right now.
I know,
I'm like, okay, I don't want to
no,
hear.
trust me, I know, because literally when my best friend was in a relationship and I would complain to her about like anything boy related, she'd be like, no, but trust. I'm like, just shut it. I'm like, you're in a healthy, happy relationship. I'm not, so I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point and you're like, wait, like this was waiting for me.
Right.
It's so weird. So I feel like, and when I say this relationship was like written by God, like I prayed about this a lot because at the time, so like I had gone through a big breakup around 2 years ago now, 5-year relationship. It ended, and that was like the end of the world for me at one point. And so I went through a lot of stages after it. Like I went through the I'm free and I can do whatever I want stage, and then I went on like I can go on dates, and then I went through the I'm depressed, I don't want to see anybody stage, like so many different stages. And I felt like I was constantly being disappointed in the dating world. Like I felt like, I mean, I'm sure you can, just the way guys are nowadays, like not being ready until they're like 35 and like not wanting to settle down and not being able to balance work and a woman. Like there was all these things going on and I was experiencing them and I was like, this just sucks. Like this dating world sucks. People will meet me and be like, oh my God, you would make the perfect wife. I'm going to leave. Like that's
literally. That's what we're dealing with.
I know, your eyes just widened when I said that. Yeah, I know. So I started to notice.
So wifey.
Exactly.
Okay, then do it.
And I have this theory because I saw it on TikTok. If a guy finds a good girl, right, and he says, oh my God, she's wifey material, and he'll tell you you're wifey material, and he still leaves. The reason he leaves is because in his mind, you're not going anywhere because you're a good girl. So you're not going to go out on dates. You're not going to hook up with guys at bars. You're not going to be out every weekend.
Interesting.
So they can leave you because they're like, she'll be there in 2 years when I'm ready.
Around.
Exactly.
Wait, that's so interesting. Because in my head, at least, I like to think that they're leaving because they're not ready, and it's like out of respect for me.
Right.
But you're probably right.
Right. It's
because
like,
if they're not ready, then
and they might like
gonna
your
be
Insta
selfish.
story here and there. They might reach out to you on your birthday. Why? They want to make sure you're still there. They want to make sure that you're still around and you're in their back pocket, because when they are ready, they're gonna want to come back to you, but they don't care about you enough to have you now.
Right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was like a theory I started to realize. And for like months, I wasn't going on dates, wasn't going out ever. Like literally, it was gym, Jesus, and work. Like that was it. Like those were my three pillars in life. And I remember one day when my current boyfriend, he messaged me on Instagram for the first time, and we had never met. It was like a very random Instagram following. Like,
okay, so he just followed you.
Yeah, like 4 months before he DM'd me.
Whoa.
And I have like 400 Instagram personal requests. Like I don't go through my personal Instagram, but for some reason his name stood out to me. I don't know why. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll accept it. I saw his profile picture. I was like, all right, I guess I'll accept him. Followed him back.
Yeah.
Didn't DM me, didn't anything, didn't have mutual. So I was like,
do you guys like live near each other?
no, he lives in the Bronx. I live in Jersey.
Okay.
So it was like very random.
Yeah.
Very random. I do get like a lot of random requests like that. I'm sure a lot of people do. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he never DM'd me. And then legit the day before he DM'd me, he posted an Instagram story of him and his family. I viewed it. I was like, who is this kid and why do I follow him? I'm unfollowing him. He followed me and did nothing about it. I go to his Instagram and something was like, just follow him for one more day. I go to see if he's still following me. He is. So I was like, all right, I'll follow him for one more day. Whatever. The next day, I go to a wedding. I take pictures of myself at this wedding.
Yeah.
I want to go to Instagram story it. And I was like, I don't really like it. And my two guy friends go, no, story, you look good. And I was like, no, I don't want to. They go, but your husband's going to respond to it. And I was like, now that you said that, I have to. So I posted on my story. The next day, my boyfriend responds to it. And he was the only guy that responded to it. And I remember I saw it, and at first I just rolled my eyes. He was like, beautiful. I just like rolled my eyes. I was like, okay, don't want anything to do with this. I'm not in the mood to date. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I was like, thank you. And then he had said, like, we should grab dinner sometime. And I didn't answer because I was like, I don't want to go on dates. So I didn't answer. 7-8 hours went by. I went to the gym in that time period of like the 7-8 hours of not answering him. And I was like, really thinking about it for some reason. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to just be the person that doesn't answer. I'm going to at least tell him, like, thanks so much, but I'm not interested in getting to know anyone. So when I got home, I'm sitting on my sister's bed and I start typing it out. This is the first time I'm telling this story, by the way.
I love this. This is
really
I live
spilling
for
the tea
this.
here.
Okay.
So I sitting on the foot of my sister's bed, and I start typing out, thank you, but I'm not interested in getting to know anyone. I kid you not, like, Jesus took over my hands. I selected the whole message, and I said, yeah, I'm down. Don't know why. To this day, I don't remember even typing it out. Like, it was not me. And it's funny because if you ask him, he'll say when he DM'd me, it wasn't him either. He's like, I followed you 4 months ago, but I just was too scared to message you because your Instagram is very like, oh, this girl's like serious. Like I can't just like slide in for no reason. Like I gotta like be ready to be like wife her up if I slide in. Like he knew, he was like, you're gonna be my wife, so I had to slide in. He's like, I just saw your Instagram and knew. It was so weird. So
wow.
Well, yeah, when he said we should grab dinner sometime, he was like with his friend, and his friend was like, no, don't say that. It's coming off too strong. But he was like, no, I don't care. And then when I answered, he was like, oh, she answered. And then we started texting. We texted, and then like, I think we went on our first date like 10 days after texting. And then after our first date, like that was it. We made a handshake on our first date. Our first date was 7 hours long because we were just sitting across from dinner talking for 7 straight hours.
You were at dinner for 7 hours?
7 hours just talking. Just talking.
Whoa.
Yeah. We were actually at dinner for 6 hours. He walked me to my car, and we were outside of my car for another hour just talking because we couldn't like say bye.
That is so sweet.
Yeah, it was crazy. And like I was leaving for the Hamptons the next day. And I remember like I'm like also a big believer on like, and I told him this on the first date, literally on the first date. I was like, by the way, if you're getting to know anybody else, cut it now. I don't want you. Like I was like,
good for you.
Like yeah, like
good
you're not
you.
Texting any other girls if you're taking me on a date. If this date's clearly going well. We've been here for 3.5 hours. So like you're not taking anyone else out. If you're that type of guy, cool. But I don't play the field. I get to know one person and like that's it. And he was like, yeah, obviously. He's very like traditional and like how I am. So it like works out very well. And then I was going to the Hamptons the next day, and I remember like being at the club, like asking him, like, "Did you eat yet today?" And I was like, "I'm done. I'm clipped. Like I was like, I'm locked into this."
That is such a cute story.
Yeah,
that's wild. That both of you in the DMs felt like it wasn't you.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good.
Because he doesn't
that's
like
so
his
God
Instagram
right
had like 300 followers. Like it's not like he had like an Instagram.
Yeah.
So it's
Wow.
so weird. And I remember the day before, the reason I'm like, it was sent by God, I forgot this part. The day before, he had said that he was very sick. And I was like, oh, great, he's planting the seed to cancel the date, you know? So I was in my car, I prayed to God. I had my Bible with me because I went to a cafe to, like, just read. I opened up my Bible, I prayed, I said, God, if he's not going to be my husband, just take him out now. I don't want to go on the date. I was like, I don't want to go on the date tomorrow if this isn't going to work out for me. So, like, if he cancels, great, I will never speak to him again. I won't go on the date. The day of, I still didn't even know if we were going on this date. Like, we had been texting normally all day, but he still hadn't said, like, oh, we can still go. Like,
Yeah.
I feel better. Literally, like, a few hours before we were supposed to go, he was like, do you want me to pick you up for tonight? And I was like, oh, we're still going tonight? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess that's God telling me, like, this is it.
Wow. Okay, so then when he picked you up, did he like do all the things?
So
Like,
I
open
didn't
the
let him pick me
door?
up because
Okay.
I didn't know him.
All right, that's fair.
Yes.
That's totally fair.
So I didn't let him pick me up because I didn't know him. And I
That's
was very
safer.
nervous.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay, he's just a kid
and you
from
want
the
your car,
Bronx.
you want an out.
Yeah.
You need an out.
Exactly.
Where did he take you? Like, where'd you
So
guys
we
meet?
went to, it's like Edgewater. It's in the middle of New York and New Jersey.
Okay.
So he had to cross the bridge. It took him like 2 hours to get there because
Whoa,
it's
okay.
like traffic on
Yeah.
the bridge. And we went out to this like dinner, has like a nice little balcony to face the city. But we like sat in a private room because the Celtics were playing and I really wanted to watch them. So he's like, I'll get us a room like with the TV so that the Celtics are playing.
Whoa,
So I didn't even eat because I was talking so much. So like I didn't eat, I didn't drink. I was literally just sitting there speaking for like 6 hours.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And yeah, okay, stories like that just remind me that like it's gonna
Because I
happen.
had no interest. I was literally like, I don't want to get to know anybody. Like, I really didn't. I was so at peace. And I get asked all the time, too, like, I'm scared of somebody disrupting my peace. And I said that to God. I was like, I'm at peace right now. Like, I'm happy with how my life is going. Do not send this person in if they're going to disrupt it. I only want someone who's going to add into my life, not take away from it. Because I've been with people who take away from you, friendships, exes, whatever it is, and it's so draining, like so draining. Yeah. So I was like, please don't let him in. Like, and I was in the beginning, very slow to letting him in. Like, even we would hang out. We hung out like I think like 8 days in a row at one point, like in the beginning. I got back from the Hansons. We saw each other every single day for like 8-9 days. And even then I was still slowly trying to get into it because I was just like, I also went into it not trying, and I think this is very important for a woman. You should not have to put effort into a relationship. And I was always the one trying to make things work. And this was the first time I just sat back and I was like, I'm going to let him do what he wants to do because I'm a woman. I shouldn't be planning a date. I shouldn't be figuring out how we're getting there. I shouldn't be I'm very like traditional with stuff. Yeah. So I was like, he has to take care of everything and I'm just going to show up and that's his prize. And that's it.
That's so good. I read a quote that was like, if he can't plan a date, he definitely can't plan your life.
Yes. And it's funny because that's the one thing he's bad at is planning stuff. And I told him on the first date, I said, I'm not going to lie, you were very unorganized with this first date. I expect the second one to be better.
Good
I said
for
that to him on the
you.
first
Setting
date.
the expectations.
Yeah, and he like loves it. He thinks it's like funny when I'm like that. And I always say
Good,
like the
yeah.
right guy will let you be like a little brat. Like he'll let you be a
Yeah.
little spoiled brat.
That's
like
true.
That's just how it is. And so for the second date, he texted me. He's like, hey, this is what we're doing for the second date. This is the date. We're going to the Bronx, dude. This is the place. This is the time. And this is a plan B if it rains or something.
Whoa.
And I was like, there you go. He listened.
That's
That's
amazing.
it. And it's like effortless. Like it doesn't, neither of you have to try. Like he didn't have to try to be the perfect guy for me. He was not like, he'll say it all the time. He's like, people always tell me to like have him on my show. I'm like, maybe I should one day. But he always says, he's like, I didn't have to try to be a good boyfriend for you. It was just, I really like this girl and I want to do this for her. And that's how a guy should be treating you.
Yeah.
Like if a guy's texting you like once every 3 days, just stop. Like
Yeah.
literally just, he wants to know what you're doing every day. Like he wants to talk to you. No matter how busy he is, like he wants to talk to you. He wants to see you. And if he doesn't act on it, I'm sorry, but he's just not into you.
Yeah. I've been on dates where I feel like we couldn't just sit at the cafe and talk for 7 hours.
Okay.
And then it's hard for me because I'm like, is this as good as it gets? And so I'm getting discouraged, but I'm like, that's what I want. Like him planning the date, him being like, I don't know, just like letting me fully be myself.
Is this as good as it gets is one of the most relatable thing I think a woman can say is like being, even if you're in a relationship and you're like, okay, this is what being in love is. Okay, I guess this is what everyone raves about. Now that I'm with this person I'm with, I'm like, wait, this is what being, like, we'll both say it. Like, sometimes we'll just stare at each other. We're like, whoa, like, how did this happen? How do we feel this way? Like, we always thought love was something else, and then you meet the person that really shows you, and you're like, I think this is the first time I was truly, truly, truly in love. Like, it takes over everything. And it's like, I saw this one thing. It's like, when you're in a healthy relationship, the only thing you worry about is one of them dying. Like, you don't worry
Wow.
about them
Yeah.
cheating on you. You don't worry about it just breaking off for no reason. And something I was nervous about in the beginning was he's in his 20s and like has his own business. And I remember in the beginning, I was like, he's going to leave me because it's going to get overwhelming for him. And that's just what guys do nowadays in their 20s is work is too much and they want to get their money right before they get the woman. And I remember I brought it up to him in the beginning and he was like, why would I let you go because of that? Like, I'd rather have you here for that journey. And I was like, that's all a woman wants is like to help their man grow. Like, that's literally all a woman wants. So it's like men don't believe that, or men want to take a different route nowadays. And it is discouraging when it keeps happening over and over again. But I promise you, and I know how annoying it is to hear. Trust me, I know. I would tell my best friend all the time. My best friend too, that I like was in a happy, healthy relationship while I was down in the dump. She kept saying to me, she's like, I met my husband, her fiance now. I met my fiance at 23, and I met my current boyfriend a month before I turned 24. So I met him at 23 too. So I was like, okay, like it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen for you. Like, I promise.
Yeah. My sister, she's about to get engaged. When this goes up, she will be engaged. My little sister. Yeah, and she says the same thing. And every time I'm like, oh my gosh, just shut up. But then hearing her talk and like seeing the way that they love each other is so encouraging rather than discouraging. And so I think it's like looking at the evidence that God will provide. And I just have to just keep praying.
Yeah, and when you see it, you won't settle for less. Like, I have a baby sister. She's 7 years younger than me. And whenever me and my boyfriend are around her, I'm like, I'm glad she sees him going to my grandparents' house with flowers. I'm glad she sees him opening car doors for me or doing this with my dad or whatever, because now she knows the guy that she brings home has to do that too. Like, me and him always talk about that, and he's always like, whoever your sister brings in, like, I'm going to give him a tough one and say, look, you got to do all this because I did it. And I'm like, that's a really good thing to look up to.
Like, continuously raising the bar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. Okay, so I saw something on your Instagram story, and it was like this tea ceremony. Is that right? Or
yeah, it's a coffee.
Okay, a coffee and tequila, right?
So, yeah, so tequila was my little
okay, so tell me about that,
customization.
because I like tried to Google it because I wasn't gonna be like too nosy, so
Wait,
I just
I love
Googled
how
it
you asked
instead.
that. This is so funny.
Yeah.
So
tell me about that.
I'm very traditional. So if anyone listening to this is from the Middle East, whether you're from like Syria, Turkey. So my dad was born in Syria. My mom was born in Turkey. I am a Syrian Orthodox. I speak Aramaic, but it's like complicated because Syria doesn't have its own country. But basically, it's actually a Turkish tradition where when a man and woman start dating, in order for the man to be like allowed to come over, or like for me to be allowed to go over, like, we don't do it that strictly nowadays, but it's like basically the man's family comes over. And so my boyfriend and his family, his siblings, their wives, the kids, and the parents came over. You can do it how big or small you did it. We did it small.
It's the perfect time of year to update your closet, especially when you get the opportunity to treat yourself to something nice. And with Quince, you get everyday luxury at an affordable price. Quince has an amazing selection of leggings, yoga pants. They've got European linen sheet sets, Italian leather handbags, beautiful jewelry, and even a washable silk skirt that I'm eyeing right now. Every piece is crafted with premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel. I picked up a beautiful pair of plum-colored high-rise crossover leggings, and I love pairing them with a cozy Mongolian cashmere sweater, one of the most iconic pieces from Quince, which starts at $50. Whatever you're looking for, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/8020 for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/8020 to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/8020.
They come over with flowers and with baskets of stuff for me. So they come over and bring stuff to the house, and they're kind of saying like, hey, we want your daughter for our son. It sounds a little bit weird, but this is just how like the traditional foreign.
Yeah, this is so cool.
So it's basically like they'll come over and they'll say like, we're giving you these baskets, quote, in exchange for your daughter. Like, not really, but like kind of.
Yeah.
And then everyone kind of just hangs out, and then I go in the kitchen and I make Turkish coffee, and I make everybody Turkish coffee, and I make everyone plain Turkish coffee except for my boyfriend. In his, I'll put like salt and then something else. So I put a little bit of tequila. And so something that it's not going to taste that good. And so he has to drink it through it being horrible to kind of say like, I'm going to take her despite her flaws. I'm still going to like love her. So he has to drink it without making a face.
That's really
to
cute.
say like, but I'm still going to drink it and have a smile on my face, because even when she is having a bad day or a flaw, I'm still going to smile and like love her through it.
Wow.
So I serve him the coffee, he drinks it, and we all kind of just like laugh about it and just hang out. So that's like, we do a few different steps in our tradition. That's like the first one. And then the next one is he puts a cross on me. So like, it's kind of like a pre-engagement. So it's your promise to each other. So he'll put a cross around my neck. We'll do like a huge party for it. A priest will be there. He'll pray on us. And that cross will be like a symbol of like our engagement. And then obviously the ring too will come after it. So yeah, there's a lot of traditional
That's
stuff.
so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this something that your family, like, do you have older sisters?
No, I'm the oldest sibling.
Okay, so you're the oldest
Yeah.
sibling. I was gonna ask if like these are something that your older
My whole
sister-
family does it. So like my cousins, my aunts, my mom and dad did it. Everyone in my community does it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so.
If
cool.
like any people listening that are like Turkish or Albanians do it too. Some people from Syria will do it, but some people might know. If you know what I'm talking about, please DM me on Instagram because I think it's so interesting to find out who else knows about it. But yeah.
So is his family?
They're
similar to us?
Italian.
Okay, Italian.
So they're from Italy. So they weren't like, it wasn't like a culture shock to them because they're like very foreign,
Yeah.
like from Italy. So it wasn't like a culture shock.
Were his parents Italian and came to America?
Yeah.
Nice.
So they
Okay,
came
that's
to
amazing.
America. His dad came to America when he was like 18. So like they
Wow,
are very
okay.
foreign.
Yeah.
So it's just like funny because it wasn't like a culture shock to them, but it's just like funny to bring. I'm a very traditional. I never want traditions to die out because I know like my generation is like the last. Like even the language Aramaic, like it's gonna die with my generation. So I have to make sure I teach my kids it. So it's like very important for me to like keep little things like that alive.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
and I'm sure
incredible.
you know, but if anyone listening doesn't know, Aramaic is Jesus' native language.
Yeah.
So it's like there's no dictionaries, like there's nowhere to find it online. Like I speak like probably a different dialect than Jesus did, but it's like one of those languages where when it leaves my generation, it's leaving.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we can do other than just like you teach your kids? I mean, like, and then it's
Yeah.
like that's I don't know. I mean, I was like I learned Spanish in high school,
Right.
but like learning a language as a 20-something, like that's hard.
It is. So like it was my first language, so I wouldn't have been able to learn. Like right now I'm trying to learn Italian for my boyfriend's like family and I'm
Okay.
like this is difficult.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think learning a language now is stuff. My mom does run an Aramaic school where she like
Wow.
will teach kids. So like we have like the priests will be like the teachers and like some men and women will volunteer to work there. I graduated from it because it's like up to 5th grade, but I learned when I was a kid. Like it was my first language. I had to learn English when I was in kindergarten. Like I didn't know English. So I had to learn English as my second language. But they do have that school, but it's like a small one in Jersey. It's not like a local thing.
Yeah. That's so cool though.
Mhm.
So I want to talk a little bit about micro habits
Mm-hmm.
because it is like New Year's time
Yeah.
when this is live. And my listeners love micro habits, just like these little tiny things that you can do that make a big impact. And I honestly think like most of the habits that we do on a daily basis probably are micro habits. Obviously going to the gym, that can be like a big thing that you do.
Yeah.
But to me in my life, like that doesn't seem like a big deal because it's something that's so important to me and makes such a big difference. Or like you even mentioned how you were considering whether you should DM your now boyfriend back and then you
Yeah.
went to the gym and then it's like you kind of had to change your heart after. Like
Yeah.
it can be such a big impact,
Mhm.
just like these tiny little things. So I would love to talk about like Christian girl habits, give or take, that have helped you grow in your faith, grow closer to God, read your Bible more, anything of the sort. So
Yeah.
does anything kind of come to mind?
Yeah, a few things. I feel like recently I've been actually really trying to focus on micro habits because I feel like that's how you grow, is just doing small things and not trying to like overwhelm yourself. I feel like a lot of time when we want to make a big change in our life, we wake up the next morning and try to do 20 things that are new to us and then we don't stick with it because it's like overwhelming. So I've been really trying to just slowly do things. One thing I would say is one change that I've been making is following influencers or watching YouTubers or listening to podcasts or reading books that like really resonate with my morals and values.
Yeah.
I do think it's okay, like for me, like I do watch YouTubers who don't have the same religious views as me or political beliefs as me, and I'm like, whatever, not gonna base everything off. I don't need the girl who's showing me how to do makeup to believe everything I
Right,
believe, you
yeah.
know? But I think that when it comes to a day-to-day of who I'm following and whose feed I'm seeing and whose Instagram stories I'm seeing, making sure I'm following myself, making sure I'm surrounding myself with people that are going to motivate me and like motivate me to want to go to church. And I always get so excited when like one of my favorite influencers is like, get ready with me for church. I'm like, oh my God, like you do that too? Like it's
Yeah.
like very comforting. So I would say who you're surrounding yourself with, who are you watching with on a day-to-day. Something else is romanticizing it, like romanticizing your Bible time. So getting cute highlighters, cute Post-its. I can't read my Bible without highlighting in it. Like, I don't know people, like, if I see someone's Bible and they're clean, everyone do you, but I can't understand it like that.
I have
So,
to annotate.
yeah.
I'm the same way. I
Me
love
too.
to write.
Highlighters, pens, Post-its. Like, I need to understand it. So that really helps me too, is romanticizing that. Another thing is, like, speaking about it. Like, my boyfriend is religious as well, but I feel like how do I word this? So my boyfriend's religious as well, but I like to talk to him, or like on the phone, I'll be like, hey, let's read this chapter together. Or I read this chapter today. Please read this. Like, it's so good. And it talks about this, this, and this. And I'll explain it to him. And just speaking it out loud makes you feel like you're talking about Jesus as like your friend. Like, it's like a cool feeling.
Yeah.
And that brings me to my next kind of habit, is a kind of like a mindset shift that I made of like Jesus being your friend. I always grew up kind of in the mindset of like being God-fearing, and I do think that you should be God-fearing, but I also don't want to just fear God. I want to have God as like my buddy.
Yeah. And like know him. You know,
know
like,
him.
have him, like he knows me,
Exactly.
like knows all the hairs on my head. Like, I want to know him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I started reading the Bible. Like, I tried to do like the front to back thing, but I couldn't get like attached to it. And so I saw something, and it was like, start in the New Testament, like start with Matthew, start reading about Jesus' life. So I started reading in the New Testament, and I was like, wait, like this is like a completely different ball game. And like, nothing against the Old Testament, but I was like, I want to start somewhere where I can just learn about Jesus first. I also like to watch like The Chosen. It's like watching little TV shows, because like, yes, it's an actor, but at the end of the day, when you portray it as like, wait, that was a real person. Like, Jesus was a real man who felt these things and did these things and said these things. Like, Jesus had a favorite color. Jesus had a favorite food. Like, when you think about it that way, and you really do just think about like Jesus as your friend, it just changes your outlook on everything. Like, I just love it. And another thing too that I loved doing, and I still love doing, is showcasing my faith, whether it's on my social media or I'm wearing a hoodie that says Jesus of Nazareth on it, whatever it is, because there's going to be people who don't agree. And unfortunately, we don't live in I think America's a little better than most places, but we don't live in a perfect world where everyone can accept everybody for who they are. But I've never been afraid to like show it off. And and I think prayer is huge. Prayer is just conversation with God. Like, people, I think, try to like make the perfect prayers and sit there and try to outline the perfect prayers, and it's like, could I just sit there and talk to God? Just sit there and talk to him about everything you would talk to your best friend about.
Yeah, I think too, like if you're in a small group and someone asks, does anyone want to pray out loud? Be the person that says yes.
Yeah.
Because it can be scary to pray out loud, because you're thinking like everyone has these like perfectly formulated prayers, or it sounds like it. In my small group, we've started to really hone in on, okay, everyone's going to pray out loud, because you need to be bold enough to pray and be bold enough to know that the things that you're saying, like the Holy Spirit will come through. And it doesn't matter if you have the right words, or like, have you ever heard a little kid pray? Like, those are still prayers, and they're not worried about how perfect it is.
And like, I've been going to Bible studies like my whole life, and I've never been able to volunteer and pray out loud, even in like front of my friends. Like, I can't. And for the first time, like 2 months ago, me and my boyfriend were going through like a hard time. Like, he was going through a hard time, and I was like, let's just pray together. And we sat there and we like put his Bible on our laps, we put our hands on it, and I spoke out loud and did a prayer for the first time, like out loud, even though it was just to one person. It just was like, wait, this is like super vulnerable. Like, it's like vulnerable, even if you're literally saying the simplest things. Like, I don't know what it is that's so vulnerable. I think it's also because a lot of us, our relationship with Jesus is us and Jesus. Like, we don't let anybody else into that bubble. So if you pray in front of people, it kind of feels like you're letting them in. Or like, if you pray with somebody, it feels like you're now letting them into that bubble with Jesus. And that was something I wanted to make sure I did with my boyfriend, was like, okay, as much as I love it to be me, and God, this needs to be like me, him, and God, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
How did you guys feel after you guys prayed together?
So it's like funny, because we're like a very unserious couple. Like, we're very just like always laughing.
Which is
like,
the best. Which means that you're like in the right place.
Yeah, because I'm very serious. Like, I'm a very serious, plan everything out type A. Oh my God, we're going to be 10 minutes late to dinner, I'm going to have a panic attack. Where he's very just like sits back, goes with the flow. That's why even with planning dates, like, I'm like, what time, what place, what day, this, that. And he's like, don't worry, I got it covered. And I'm like, no. Like, I need to know.
Sidebar, why are all dudes kids like that.
Just so chill.
They don't care.
They're like, everything's gonna work out, and it does work out. But
because we went and planned it.
yeah, exactly. No, I told him, and I said to him too, because after he started planning the first few days, I go, just so you know, I'm gonna take over this. I go, you're doing great, but I thrive off this. I feed off of it. I'm okay with when we go on trips in the future. I'll plan the whole thing.
Yeah.
Give me your card. I'll do it all.
Literally.
Like, I'll do it all. And he's like, I love that. And I'm like, good. Like, we just went to Florida. Didn't pay for one thing, but I planned
Easy.
what we did.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, okay.
That's a great exchange.
Yeah,
That's
it
a
is.
great deal
I
to
will
have
do
going
that for the
on.
rest of my life. Thank you very much. Like, I feed off planning. I feed off being type A, where he's just like chill. But it also helps in situations where the most minor thing will happen. Like, my curling iron will break before we get ready. And I'm like, this is the end of the world. This was supposed to happen. Now I have to spend extra time doing this. And he's like, literally just straighten your hair instead. Like, he has just the easiest, calm solution. And it helps too when you're arguing or communicating. Like, to just both speak gently to each other. I don't even remember where I was going with this.
Prayer and how'd you guys feel after you prayed
Oh,
together?
right, yes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, like, we're very, like, unserious. So when we do pray and it's serious, it's like afterwards we kind of just look at each other like, wow, we both found the person that we can do this with. And it's like, my boyfriend's very religious, but he was never the type to pray every night before bed or like open his Bible every day. And he said right after our first date on his way home, he Amazon Primed a Bible. Because he was like, I knew that you were the type of girl I was going to have to start reading the Bible for. So like after that, I was telling him like, okay, we can read it together. I'll annotate, like, this is going up after Christmas, but for Christmas, I'm going to get him his own Bible and I'm going to annotate some of my favorite verses in it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so I want to do that because I know that picking up the Bible for the first time, or, you know, if you don't do it often, is not easy. It's overwhelming. There's a lot of information. You don't know where to start. You don't know where to go. If you're going through something in life, you don't know what direction to go. Sometimes you could just pray to God and open a page, and I swear he just tells you what you need to hear.
Yeah.
But it's more so just the feeling of like, wow, we found the person that we can bring God into this with. Like, I've never had, like, friends or a relationship where I could bring God into it. This was, like, the first time I was like, I can bring God into this, and I feel okay with that.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I want to circle back to something that you mentioned in your habits, and then you just kind of brought it up again. Reading the Bible can be difficult.
Yeah.
And something that really helped me shift my perspective was reading it to learn about who God is and reading to learn about who Jesus was and still is, rather than reading it to find like an inspirational quote.
Yeah.
And for so long, I didn't understand that the Bible is truly a history book. And if you open it up to a random page and just read something, most likely you're not going to get what you're looking for. You did mention, though, like sometimes you open it up and it's like,
sometimes God will give you like a little laugh.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
like,
How'd you
understand.
know? Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes you open it up and it's just confusing.
Yeah.
And so for someone who is starting out, what's a good place for them to start, in your opinion?
So I love how you said don't read it just for like inspiration, because I used to read it like when I was in middle school, high school. I'd search up, I'm going through this, what verse should I read?
Yeah.
That's how I would read it.
Which isn't always a bad thing.
It's not a bad
It can
thing.
be
Hey,
helpful.
you're still reading it. You're still taking advice from God.
Yeah.
But I wanted to like.
But then it's about me.
Right.
You know, I'm trying to make God's word about me, and it's not about me.
Yes. So I would say New Testament, Matthew. I actually looked it up too because I was like, okay, I need to stop being a little bit selfish. I need to like figure out who I'm getting advice from. Even with my own podcast, I started creating personal content because I want people to know who they're getting advice from. So I'm taking advice from God and Jesus. I don't even know them. You know, like I have to get to know them.
Wow.
So I started to Google it. I was like, where should I start in the Bible to learn more about God and learn more about Jesus's life? And it told me start in Matthew, go to Mark, do the Gospels. So I started in Matthew, and then something I always did, because we always did it in Bible study, was I would read the chapter, but then I would go back and I would read Psalms. So like that was always something that I did because we just did it in Bible study, and I like to end on a Psalms prayer. So I went to Matthew, and I also did watch The Chosen with it, which is funny because it started to match timelines at one point, and I was like, oh, this is like really cool. This is like book and movie. So I would say start in Matthew, and also, like you said, yes, it is a history book. It's telling you about the Gospel's lives, about Jesus' life, about the history, yes, but also I believe that every single chapter and every single story has a deeper meaning for you to unlock. So, like, I don't want to butcher the name of the disciple, but I believe it was Thomas the disciple. When Jesus came back from the dead and he rose, all the disciples were, like, freaking out about it. Oh, my God, he's back, he's back. And they went to Thomas and they showed him. They said, oh, Jesus is back. And he came back with the nails in his hand and everything. And Thomas was like, I don't believe it. Like, I don't believe that Jesus came back. And everyone was like, what do you mean? Like, look. And he goes, I need to feel where the nails are. I need to feel this. And it's like Thomas, who knew Jesus, who saw him perform miracles, who spent that much time with him, still didn't have all the faith. And we sit here and we have blind faith. We believe it off nothing. We never got to hang out with Jesus. We never saw Jesus perform miracles. We never spent time with him, but we still make the decision to believe. Where Thomas, who did everything with Jesus, still doubted that he came back. Yeah. So I think about things like that where that could just be a historical story of, oh, a disciple didn't believe Jesus came back, or it could be a deeper meaning of how does blind faith correlate to us now? So I think about the Bible in that way, and I'm like, try to find a deeper meaning behind all of it, even if you have to Google it or find a YouTube video of like, what does this verse mean? Because I don't know every verse. I definitely don't know what it all means. My Bible is called the She Reads Truth Bible, so it actually explains a lot. It's a really good one. Explains a lot in it. She'll have like little pages where she'll relate a verse to a story in her life, and it helps you to kind of understand like, oh, this is what Jesus is talking about when he says this.
It's so helpful to have that additional content and the additional context.
The one thing I will say is I think nowadays a lot of us try to make excuses for things that we do now that are unbiblical. So we'll be like, well, okay, but the generations change. And I always try to tell people, well, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He does not change. Like, okay, the generation might be okay with this and this happening in the world, but Jesus isn't. Like, Jesus isn't going to get with the times. He doesn't follow the trends, He's the same every time. So that's something I try to preach, and people don't like it when you preach that all the time, and I preach it all over my social media, and people don't like that, but it's my belief, and at the end of the day, like, if somebody's going to unfollow me because they disagree with something or a viewpoint that I have, I'm okay with it. Like, I'm okay with that loss.
Yeah. Do you think that people don't like it because they're not willing to, like, swallow their own egos and realize, like, life isn't really about me?
I think people... Yes, I agree with the ego, and I also agree that people like to be conspiracists. People like to have to dig deeper. Like, no, God didn't create the world. The asteroids must have, or whatever, the monkeys, whatever people believe. I don't even know. But it's like there always has to be proof for people. So, like, people always need proof to believe everything. And so they can't, like, I've talked to people who have no religious beliefs, and they go... Then they tell me, they'll be like, I think that your religion is just a backbone for you. I think it's just a comfort place for you. I don't think it's real. And I think deep down you don't think it's real. I think you want to believe in it because it brings you peace. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I understand why someone who doesn't have faith would say that. But when faith is more of a relationship with God than it is just something to lean back on for an afterlife, because I don't really think about the afterlife. Like, I do, but it's not my main focus. It's more so how can I bring Jesus into my world today? Yeah. Not more so like I care so much about, obviously I want to go to heaven, but you know what I mean? It's not like the main thing. So I feel like people do say that because people have been dealt bad cards in life. Like, they've been dealt a bad hand, and they don't want to believe that something good out there could help them get out of that. A lot of the time when people get dealt a bad hand in life and they're always unlucky and always unfortunate, they don't want to believe that something good is going to come out of it because their whole life they tried to believe that and they always got knocked down. So now when people are optimistic and people do have faith in something, they want to tear it down and they don't want to believe in it because they don't feel like it's going to work out for them,
Yeah. Well, and to your point about some people say, like, using it as a backbone. Yeah. Like, just because you can call yourself a Christian doesn't mean that you actually are. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of people acting certain ways, but they're not actually acting the way that Jesus would act. Yeah. And so kind of going back to the idea of knowing who Jesus is, a lot of people don't want to volunteer at the homeless shelter or donate to the church. Like, a lot of people don't want to do these things. They don't want to serve. But Jesus hung out with the sinners and the tax collectors and the people who nobody really liked. Yeah.
I think it's pressure for people. Yeah. I think it's pressure. That's why even when I post about it, I'm like, what if I post about it, but then I post a picture of me drinking wine the next day? People are going to say, you can't do both. So I get the pressure of it, but the one thing God won't forgive you is denying him. But if you fear God, then you believe in God. And they also say if you believe in God, but you still do everything opposite that he tells you to do in the Bible, you're just like Satan. Because Satan believes in God, but he does everything the opposite that God says. So I think it's all about finding your balance of being in a relationship with Jesus, not disobeying. Like, I always say too, like, when we love our partners, when we love our boyfriend or our girlfriend, we don't want to cheat on them and we want to spend time with them. And we're not going to go to our boyfriends and say, hey, I love you so much, and then not talk to them for 2 weeks. Like, we're not going to do that. So it's like, what makes Jesus different? If you go, I love you, Jesus, and the next day you're out till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, blackout drunk, it's like, That's like going to your partner and saying I love you and going to the bar and flirting with somebody else. Like, stop flirting with sin. That was something that it's like,
yeah, that's good.
that was
yeah.
something that I like had to tell myself, was like, I could go to a club or go to a bar and not be blackout drunk and like talking to all these people. Like, I could go to a bar and have a drink and talk to my boyfriend and maybe have a bite. Like, I can still be in those environments. Like you said, Jesus hung out with sinners. You can be in those environments. Your best friend's having a birthday at a club and you don't want to miss it. You don't have to miss it, but you also don't have to show up in a short dress taking shots. Like, there's balance in everything. And so just realizing, like, if you're not, like I said, stop flirting with sin. If you're not capable of being in a club without getting blackout, don't go to the club.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not capable of being in a relationship without cheating, don't be in a relationship right now. Like, there's things that you have to work on with yourself to make sure that when you're in an environment that's very easy to sin, you're going to resist it. Just how you do in relationships. You resist the urge to cheat. You shouldn't have that urge, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, sometimes people think that, like, oh, if I become a Christian, then I can't do X, Y, and Z. And you kind of get to a point where you're like, I don't even want to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't want to do the things that I used to do because it's not appealing anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I know God so well, and I know the things that he wants for my life, and he doesn't want that for me, and so I don't want it for me either.
Yeah.
It's almost like just a complete, like, attitude and mindset shift, and it almost happens without you knowing it. Like, you just kind of get to a point where you're like, yeah, I don't really want to be at the club till 2 a.m.
I know. And it's like, you might look at past you and be like, whoa, me at 3 o'clock in the morning at the club last year would have never thought I'd be here.
Or there are outfits that I look back on that I wore and I was like, why did I wear
I saw myself
that?
at Halloween last year and I was like, I went to a club as a housewife. And my dad dropped me off in that dress.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, wait, am I like, how? And it's like the people around me, my friends and my parents were probably like, wow, she's losing her mind. But they knew, like, she has to figure it out on her own.
Yeah.
Like, she has to figure, like, now I'm in a relationship. It's like, neither of us go out. If I'm at home sick and our friends are going out to a bar, he's staying home because his girlfriend's not going. Like, that's how I am. And I never thought a relationship like that was possible. Wow. Like, I always thought I was going to be with a guy that's like, it's guys' night, sorry. Like, no, like, I'm first priority. And so, like you brought up too, people don't want to have to sacrifice. They don't want to have to change. And they don't want to have to change their life for God. And it's like, you do that in your life for everything. If you want to be successful, you have to change your habits. If you want to be in a good relationship, you have to change your mindset. Like, you have to change the way you live life. Like, not to be, I don't know, this is like a very tough love thing I talk about on my show, but girls that complain they're not in relationships, but they're out every single weekend. Like, why would a guy want that? Like, I'm sorry, doesn't mean don't have fun. It doesn't mean you're not worth loving. It just means you might not be ready for one. If you're going out every weekend and you're dressed up like that and you're getting drunk every weekend, don't expect a godly man to be there waiting for you. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I always say, too, when it comes to men, don't find a man that wants a wife. Find a man that wants to be a husband because,
that's
good.
That's
like,
good.
he's going to work on himself because he wants to serve God, and then he's going to be the best at serving you, too.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what guys are going to like or not like. Just focus on who you want to be and who you would fall in love with and who you would date.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's such good advice. And that can be such a tricky topic. There are so many things that are okay these days that really aren't, and we could go down such a rabbit hole. But
I just lost like 300 followers on Instagram recently.
So and right after the election, I didn't post a thing. And I lost probably between like
I lost
100 to
over
300
300. I saw my stats and I was like, okay. I got really mean DMs.
Wow.
Like, the meanest DMs I've ever gotten in my life. People were wishing death upon me.
Were they people that you knew or people that you didn't
No, just people
know?
that followed me on Instagram. People that I knew, I didn't really like. There were some people that would like unfollowed me on Instagram and then they'd story and be like, you're a disgusting human. And like, if you did this and this, like something I literally did. And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want me to do with that? Like, I would never do the same to you because we have different beliefs. Like, I'm okay with sitting in a room with somebody that has a different belief than me. I will never be the person that sits there and try to convince you otherwise. If that's the way you steer, that's the way you steer. The only thing I will try to convince someone of is my faith. Like, if someone were to deny God in front of me, I'm going to defend God. I still know there's one idol in the world that you should be idolizing. There's one man in power. And I actually was just reading a verse yesterday that was talking about, like, these people in power, they speak out blessings, but they curse inwardly. Like, they're speaking all these good things, but they're sinners. So I just, and God literally says, like, don't lose sight of me because I'm number one. Like, that's how it is. And so as much as we vote for people or we idolize people or whatever, or we look up to people, like, God is number one. And I, like, make sure I'm very clear of that. I might vote for somebody. I might have a certain system that I want in the country, but the world is controlled by the one and only, and that's it.
Yeah. And, like, it makes me so sad to see how divided we are. And we could go on and on and on about this, and we'll try not to, but it makes me so sad to see how divided we are. And really, like, people are putting their faith in a person.
Yeah.
And people are always going to let you down. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle they sit on, they're always going to let you down.
Yeah.
And obviously there are policies and, you know, someone that I would prefer in office better than somebody else. But at the end of the day, like, God is going to continue to be God. And if you look politically, people have been arguing forever.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, world peace in your country, it's hard to find. And so we have to just put our faith in God.
Yeah.
And I love seeing your posts because I'm not
It's tough.
bold enough. I'm not bold enough.
Even my boyfriend was like, maybe don't post anything political on your Instagram. Like, he's like, maybe just don't. Like, maybe you don't have to do that. And I was like, look, it's like, I don't lead by politics. It was just a current trend, and I kept up with it. And I felt a certain way, and I did it. And people didn't like it, and that's totally fine. On my personal Instagram, I don't care because that's like a private Instagram. I have with only people I know. Probably could have kept it off my podcast Instagram. Probably could have been better. But I also was like, if someone's going to hate me because of it, and like that person's literally going to DM me and be like, I hope you rot in hell, like your future president, then I don't need you to follow my show. Like, I really don't. Like, it's okay if you want to let go of me because of that. Like, it's legit fine. So my thing was like, if I followed Instagrams that were posting the opposite, you know, people were posting all about Kamala, and I didn't vote for Kamala, and people were posting her. I'm not going to unfollow you. I'm not going to DM you and say
tap on through.
Yeah.
Tap on through.
Am I going to respond to you and say you're dumb? Like, no, you have your beliefs and I have mine, and we live in the same world under one God, and that's it. So that's when I was just like, I just don't care if I lose followers from it. Is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and you're kind of a situation where, like, no matter what you do, you're going to lose followers.
Yeah.
I didn't post a thing. Lost a ton of followers by not posting.
Yeah.
Like, what? What?
Yeah, and you know what? I never posted ever in my life, and I still lost followers. People were like, you're so, what was the word? That, like, you're just so spoiled. You don't care about what's going on in the real world because you're never going to be affected by it. Like, things like that. Like, you don't talk about, they're like, you don't talk about this topic. And I'm like, because I never went through it. So why would I sit here and talk, like, for example, if someone was like, talk about divorced parents, for example, I can sit there and I could give you my advice, but then people are going to say, how dare you talk about this? You never went through it. You don't know what I went through. Yeah, I don't know what you went through, so I don't want to speak on it like that. So it's, like, tough to, like, find that balance of, because it's a very sensitive generation. Like, you can't just talk about things anymore. And I'm not sensitive. I never grew up. So I grew up in a foreign household as the oldest daughter. Like, I'm the opposite of sensitive. So when people, like, will tell me things, like, that are tough to hear, I can take it. But a lot of people can't.
Yeah.
So it's a tough balance to be in this world and say things, like, blindly. Because I talk on my podcast. I don't even know what the hell I'm saying half the time. So, like, if someone were to clip me and be like, why would she say this? It's offensive. Like, I'm sorry again. That's just who I am.
That's how my younger sister is. She's so bold. She says whatever she wants. And I just don't have that trait. Like, even when I'm editing the podcast, I'm like, I hope that this doesn't take it the wrong way. And so I'm trying to work on that because there are certain things that I feel so passionately about that people listening would never know that I feel passionately about.
Yeah.
Because I just don't speak on it.
Even Faith, yeah. That was me.
Yeah, and so I've been trying so hard to become more comfortable talking about these things. And it's not, but I also feel like God kind of used that period of time, the past probably 6 months of me being like, should I quit the podcast? Should I just delete my Instagram? Should I could, like, I went private on my Instagram for a little bit too because I was like, I don't want people looking. I like whatever.
I get that.
And it seems like my situation was very similar to yours, and it was almost like a shedding of like, okay, I'm gonna go through this. I'm gonna kind of like go into my little hole and hide for a little bit, and then I'm gonna come out stronger, and I'm gonna come out okay with being able to speak about God because I know who He says I am, and I know what His Word says, and that's what I'm gonna continue to fall back on. I'm not gonna fall back on the followers, on the analytics, on the people in my DMs praising me for saying something that they wanted to hear on the podcast. Because you're not really going to get anywhere just by hearing the things that you want to hear.
Exactly.
So anyway, all right, a little rabbit hole. All right, Olivia, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you want to go ahead and shout out your podcast, your socials, where people can find you, all that?
Yes, so everything is For You from Eve, Eve. That's my middle name. My first name is Olivia. A lot of people think it's Eve, but I go by either. It doesn't matter. My Instagram and TikTok is For You from Eve. I post a lot of vlogs, a lot of chit chat, a lot of just car talks. And then my podcast is also For You from Eve. I upload every single Friday. And I'm actually, now that it's January, but this past December, I did an Eve Miss from December 1st to the 25th, where I uploaded an episode every day. Very bold. I'm saying it now so that way I actually have to do it, because if this episode comes out and I didn't do it,
you're locked in now. You're
I'm
locked
into it. So yeah, and then you could go to my website, www.foryoufromeve.org, and I have all my services. I have a digital reset package, I have a Notion planner, and I also have a Zoom call where you could schedule a Zoom call with me to talk about starting your own podcast, and I share with you guys my best tips and tricks. I honestly share probably more than I should on that. So definitely go check all that out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.